Welcome to my show. I am with a guest here. His name is Tim Blair. Tim Blair, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm fine, thank you very much, sir. Firstly, can you tell us a bit about your best-selling book, Ever Near, your best-selling author book, sir?
Yeah, it's a book that tells a story about how my wife and I found each other, um, many of the challenges that we faced through the years, including a serious injury of my own, um, as well as her eventual illness with uh, gastric cancer and her passing away. And then it continues on to our life together since she's passed and our ability to communicate um, from beyond.
All right, sir. There's a question that dropped in my mind. I would love to ask, what made you believe that there is an afterlife, sir?
Um, I was raised in a Christian faith um, that did believe in an afterlife, but it was the way I was raised. It was quite restrictive. It was something that was attained um, very far in the future. But when my wife and I actually um, found each other and became friends, it was apparent not just to us, but to everyone around us that there was something very ancient about our relationship, that we had been together many times before. Um, and through that process, we did some reading um, and studying on those types of things. And it just became clear to us that if we had been together before, there must be something after. It just made sense to us that um, life was a continuation, not just of the physical body, but of uh, an existence prior to and then beyond, if that makes sense.
All right, sir. How also your belief? How was your belief? With this afterlife thing, how has it, influenced your life? How has it make you view what life is all about? Has it made you more humble? Has it made you more lifestyle? Like, how has it make you view life today?
One of the things that it's done is that it allows one to face challenges without a great deal of fear. Um, as human beings, we're mostly fearful about our own demise or those we love. And once that is eliminated, it makes it much easier to see life challenges as just challenges, as something that we walk through um, that has no um, permanent effect on our eternal being, that our consciousness remains, and that it's just easier to walk through life knowing that not only will I continue to exist, but those who I love um, will be there with me and can be there with me now, can be here and now with me. So it makes life easier.
All right, sir. I would like to ask, do you believe in the concept heaven, purgatory, and hell? Do you believe in something like that, sir?
I believe that heaven and hell are something that we experience in the here and now. It's a place of um, it is a place where we exist in our own minds. It is a creation of our own thought. I do not. I While I believe in consciousness extending beyond the physical body, um, I prefer to think of that existence more of being home, being in our natural state, and and through that being a state of bliss. So you might call that heaven, But to me, hell is an existence that you create in your own mind here and now.
All right, sir. Do you have any story of your experience in this afterlife situation? Do you have any story or experience you've had during your time, sir?
That I've had during my time, an
Yes.
experience, an experience that I could recount of my uh, communication with my wife, you mean?
Yes, like that have shaped your view, sir.
Yeah, okay. One of the, I suppose it's less profound, but it is also something that made a lot of sense to me. Um, Shortly after my wife passed, I began hearing her voice. A couple of times it was in an audible way, out loud, as though someone was standing next to me. But generally, it's something that occurs in my own thoughts. But her voice is different than mine. It uses different words, syntax. So I know it's her. On early morning walks, we would often have discussions. And one morning, it, it, it was as though she was telling me that I needed to get another dog, a pet. Um, and I did not want the responsibility of another animal. Um, I was struggling with my own health, and it just seemed to be too much. And every morning on every walk, I would immediately hear her say, "You need a dog." And I would say, "No, I don't need a dog." And I actually began arguing with my deceased wife, if you can imagine that. It got to the point where I didn't even want to go out for a walk because I knew what she would say. Um, and so I finally thought, I know, I'm going to outsmart her. And so I will agree to get a dog, but I will adopt a pet online, and it must be a very young puppy. It must be a large breed dog, and it must have a name already assigned to it online that I will recognize. And all I heard was, "Okay, fine." That's, and when I went back home, it was about three in the morning, and I went online. And the first animal was a cat. I'm allergic, so no cats. The next animal that came up on the screen was a 3 month old German Shepherd puppy named Bear. Um, I emailed the adoption agency, and within 4 hours, I had a response back. 2 days later, Bear was home with me. Um, this is an animal I did not particularly want, but eh, until I got him, he has been such a help in my life. He's very large. He carries things for me. He can help me get out of bed if I'm physically unable that day. He can help me walk. Um, so he's the greatest blessing in my life. But he came about because my wife and I had a discussion about getting a pet that I did not want. So that's a simple one. There are many very profound conversations we have, but that was a simple one.
Wow, that was a big shock to me. Wow, I wish I had something like that too, but I wasn't lucky. So, so how do you think your belief have changed? How do you think your belief can change the way society treats death today?
Um, I have a friend who just yesterday, lost uh, a very important person in his life,
Oh,
a mentor. And my friend is very much on the forefront of believing and writing about consciousness extending beyond death. He knows this, but that does not minimize the feeling of loss he has. Um, Death is a change. It is a radical change in one's life, and we are left with all sorts of feelings, and those feelings of loss are real. For me, I've spent 7 years now pretty much by myself. I live rural in a rural area of California. It's just me and my dog. That's the only thing I'm aware of all day long. So being by myself was a significant change in my life. Um, it was a loss I experienced, and it was profound. Um, Death is a difficult thing to deal with, even if you do believe in consciousness beyond the physical body. It is still a radical change in your life, and the loss is real. Um, so death is a big thing. It just doesn't require the end of a relationship, or the end of life continuing with those you love. If that kind of makes sense.
All right. Thank you very much for that, sir. And I'm willing to ask, do you have any comfort or do you have any fear regarding to this belief of afterlife, sir? Do you have any
Do I have any? I'm sorry, I didn't hear the
comfort or
question.
fear towards the belief of afterlife?
Comfort of fear.
Yes, sir.
Um, well, for me, knowing that my existence is not limited to just what I'm experiencing now, um, I am not I'm not anxious to pass on and die, but I'm not afraid of it, because it continues. And if I'm in this body now, and I believe that my wife and I have been together previously, there is no reason to believe that I won't exist in another body at some future point. Um, so I do not experience any fear of death. I really don't. I experience I do not want to be uncomfortable. I don't want to experience physical pain with my death. But I mean, being dead is not a big deal to me. Getting there might be. I don't know.
All right, thank you very much. I really like that. That's faith. And I want to also ask, apart from your wife that you've been having conversation and things like that with, is there any book or any TV films that has also influenced your belief in this afterlife, sir?
Um, After my wife passed, and I began to experience being with her myself, um, I did not have any reference point for that. So I began to read a lot of books um, on the subject. Um, I One of my favorite authors is a gentleman, Richard Martini. He's written, I believe, 10 books on the subject. Um, and I've become friends with him. And he actually wrote the foreword for my book. So um, that would be a good place to start, is just finding as many books as you can. Um, there, there are folks who have a scientific background who are writing books on these topics now that have basis in investigation and scientific methods that are proving that the afterlife is a real thing, um, that consciousness does extend beyond what we see. Um, so that would be what I would suggest, is finding an author. I mean, it's easier to find books on this topic now than it was 20 years ago. So that's where I would encourage people to go.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that, sir. And what do you think? What do you believe? Like, what do you believe soul people that have died, where do you think there's do you believe that there is a soul after death, and what do you think happens to those souls after death?
My belief is that we are beings of energy, of light. And while that doesn't indicate having a form, it also doesn't indicate having a place. Um, the way my wife has explained it is that she exists literally in the same physical space, only with different physics, which is how we can communicate without me necessarily being able to see her. Um, that she is in a physical space similar to mine with different physics. So time, space, all of those things exist for her, but differently. Um, being raised the way I was, we were taught to believe that heaven was a place, a physical place beyond our knowing. Um, and in many ways, I think that's true. Um, but I don't have a really good definition of what it is like. Um, and I think that for me, that's by design. I'm not sure I'm supposed to know exactly what that is.
All right, sir. I would like to ask, what do you have any question or uncertainty you have with the belief of the afterlife? Is there any question you still have with regarding to that belief? And do you have any more books you are willing to write when it comes to afterlife, sir?
Excuse me. Um, as a matter of fact, this morning, I was working on the second book. Um, I believe that there will be four or five more at least. When I began communicating with my wife, it was on walks in the morning and we would just talk. And then I would come home and I would try to remember what we talked about and make notes. Um, my physical ability to walk got became difficult. So I actually um, began writing from her. And over a period of 5 years, I've gotten over 300. I stopped counting at 300 letters that I've transcribed from her in a method that's similar to automatic writing, if you're familiar with that term. Um, the first book, I used 12 of those letters. So I have a lot of material to go back through and compile into more books. So yes, there will be more books. Um, it is it's really a joyful thing to do because it's another way to communicate with my wife.
All right, sir. And I just want to ask, you have your wife that are you still thinking about marriage, or you are not even thinking about that now, sir?
Um, I, it's not something I worry about. Um, I live a fairly solitary life, so I don't have physical people in my life. I have now many friends online that have come about through this process of writing a book and learning more about afterlife communication. Um, I know that my wife would love for me to be happy. And so I don't I don't discount anything happening in the future. Um, I just don't know what that would be. If you can understand that, I'm not worried about it. If it happens, it happens. If not, I'm not worried about it.
All right, sir. Thank you very much for that. Generally, what advice do you think you can give to the audience regarding to afterlife, regarding to speaking to ghosts, things like what advice can you give to them, sir?
Well, I think the first thing is to allow yourself to imagine or believe that it might be possible. If I think that that's the first step, and to recognize that if you've had someone who was dear to you that passed away, um, almost everybody has this little feeling that they've been guided or spoken to. or maybe a bird comes to you at a right at just a unique moment, or possibly a song comes on your music stream that reminds you of someone. Um, I believe that those are communications. I really do. Um, and I don't think it matters so much if you're having day to day, moment to moment conversation, as much as you just allow for the possibility that it could take place, and that communication is not necessarily verbal. It can be a, a, a feeling of well being that comes over you in a stressful moment. That could be a loved one that's guiding you through a difficult time. Um, Again, I think that the first step is just thinking it's possible, um, or allowing it to be possible, if that makes sense.
All right, thank you so much for that, sir. And lastly, there's a question I used to ask. If from the ancestors, from the forefathers, if there's anything you would like to bring back to our time today, what do you think that thing will be, sir?
Try to think of just one thing. Um, I think again, it is that we're not alone. So many times, and it's different for different cultures, but so often we feel like we're in this life by ourselves, and sometimes we feel that way even in the middle of a crowd or in the middle of our own family. We feel like we're having to walk this path completely alone. And I think that the thing that I would like for people to understand is that it's not true. That that each of us um, are being guided by those who came before, um, and in turn, at some point, it may be our time to guide someone who is coming after us, if that makes sense. So I would think that would be it, that just to know you're not alone.
All right, sir. Tim Blair, I want to appreciate you for the little time you gave to me, the little opportunity that you gave to me to, have this conversation of afterlife. I want to say thank you so much, sir. I would really appreciate you, sir.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time as well.
All right, sir. Have a wonderful day. I love you so much. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye bye.